Boa tarde a todos, jornalistas, senhoras
Good
jornalistas.
afternoon, everybody, journalists, representatives of the media. Let me start by addressing our guest in English, and subsequently, if you have any questions in Portuguese, I will answer in Portuguese, and if in English, I will answer in English.
And to welcome you again. I already welcomed you a lot today, but to say it public, it's important to stress how having you here is important for us, because we interpret this, I try not to be abusive in our interpretations, as not only the visit of a friend to Portugal, but also as a sign of recognition of our strong commitment to NATO, because Portugal is a founding member of this organization, because we had lots of opportunities to stress how committed we are to NATO and how we consider NATO as a part, as I like to say, a part of our genetic code of defense and security. To tell you the truth, and I myself and the foreign minister, yesterday we published an article in a national paper, and we stressed that. We strongly believe that now it's impossible to understand our defense policy with NATO. And so NATO is already a part of our history. NATO is a part of our way of guaranteeing the security and defense of our citizens. And it's, having said this, you understand how important it is for us having you here, visiting JOG, visiting Strike for NATO, knowing what you are doing with the NATO Academy. It's important also to discuss very frankly, and I think that we are very frank one to each other in our discussions, our concerns, our expectations. And now that we are approaching a major step forward for the organization with the new structure of command, your presence here is even more important for us. So, Jens, thank you very much, and dear Secretary General, we are very glad of having you here.
Thank you so much, and it's a great honor to be here and to once again meet with you. We have met many times, but this is actually our first meeting in Lisbon, and for me it is a great honor to be here, because Portugal is such a key ally in our alliance. Portugal makes NATO more secure on land, at sea, in the air, and also in cyberspace. We are very grateful for your many contributions. On land, your troops serve with NATO's multinational brigade in Romania. In the air, your jets have kept the skies secure over the Black Sea region. At sea, you are contributing to NATO maritime operations again and again. And in cyberspace, NATO's state-of-the-art academy is being built here in Portugal, and we just visited a site where the new academy for communications, information and cyber is now going to be built. When this academy is finished, thousands of students will attend the courses there every year, which just strengthen the position of Portugal as a key ally in our alliance. Let me also say that we are grateful for the way Portugal is supporting and contributing to different NATO missions and operations also beyond our borders, not least by the fact that you are supporting our rescue support mission in Afghanistan, and also the fact that you have decided to increase your presence in Afghanistan. And it is important to remember that the reason why NATO is present in Afghanistan is that we are fighting terrorism. We have to prevent that Afghanistan once again becomes a safe haven for international terrorism. NATO is also fighting terrorism in other ways. We support the global coalition to defeat ISIS. NATO is a full member, and we provide support to the global coalition by training Iraqi soldiers and officers, and also with our AWACS surveillance planes supporting the air operations of the global coalition. The Atlantic Ocean is what binds our alliance together. We are a transatlantic alliance, North America and Europe, and therefore we also focus on the importance of burden sharing within the alliance. Burden sharing is not only about spending, but it's also about providing modern military capabilities and contributing personnel, soldiers, to our operations. But it's also about investing in our defenses. So at our summit, NATO summit in 2014 in Wales, all allies made a pledge to stop the cuts in defense spending and then gradually increase and then move towards spending 2% of GDP on defense. I welcome that Portugal has stopped the cuts in defense spending, and also that you have started to increase. But I also expect that you will continue, because we need more investments from many NATO allies to make sure that we are delivering on the promise and the pledge we made back in 2014. So once again, thank you for an excellent day here in Lisbon, where we have had many important discussions and where we have addressed how we together as an alliance can continue to respond and adapt to a new and more demanding security environment.
Thank you. And if you allow me, now I'll speak a little bit in Portuguese, because só queria dizer, pronto, reiterando aquilo que disse em inglês e desenvolvendo um pouco
I would
mais,
like to reiterate what I've already stated in English. This is indeed a very important visit of the Secretary General of NATO for the Portuguese government, because it further strengthens our commitment with this organization. Portugal has been committed in NATO. In 2018, we will be participating in 7 operations or 7 NATO missions. An important decision has been made, and that is to strengthen significantly our presence in the Resolute Support operation in Afghanistan, and a swift operation force will be made up of Portuguese members, and the government has also expressed clear commitments for international security, and we also acknowledge the importance of NATO for our defense. During this visit, many other topics were also discussed, as the Secretary General just mentioned. We discussed the new structure of NATO to adapt to challenges and threats that were unforeseeable. As you all know, a study for the new command structure is being made. We believe there is a new way to tackle threats for the Atlantic, and we believe that NATO is facing these new challenges by showing that these new threats and what may put at stake our defense cannot be seen based upon silos. The NATO Secretary General also talked about the burden sharing. Portugal has indeed reinstated its commitment, first in Wales and again in the Warsaw Summit, to fully respect its commitments. As you know, the defense budget for the current year includes an increase, and you know most certainly that during 2018 the military programming law will be revised, and the government has also announced that we have the intention of reinforcing expenditures where it is most needed. It's also publicly known that Portugal is closing the negotiations for the purchasing of aircrafts. And taking into account what is spent on capabilities, so that this will entail an increase of the expenses vis-à-vis the GDP.
Para a circunstância de que na avaliação daquilo que cada dá para esforço que é comum e que nos diz
there is a joint effort,
despesa,
and we must consider expenditures, the investment in capabilities, and we must also consider contributions. This is indeed important for Portugal, and since it has been disclosed, we have the intention to have a Center for the Security of the Atlantic in the Azores. In principle, it will be in the larger space. We also want to invest more in maritime security, and the Portuguese state has a natural vocation as far as maritime security is concerned. I've also conveyed to the Secretary General that recently Berrio and NP Zaire, these two vessels went to São Tomé and Príncipe. One vessel will stay there for 1 year. It is an innovative mission, but it also shows a clear perception of the needs of each country. And sometimes we can achieve a lot with a considerably small amount of expenditure. So Portugal will participate in the capacity building of the Coastal Guard of São Tomé and Príncipe. Our Marines are present, and also members of the military forces of São Tomé and Príncipe will work together with us in this vessel, and we believe this is a relevant and important contribution, and it also shows how we can see the existing needs as far as security is concerned, and we can give effective contributions within this common effort. And I would like to bring to a close my first address to you. This is an international organization. We are founding members of NATO. We've always been committed members of NATO, and we hope that NATO is able to adapt, to be more modern and more efficient, but on our side, we also adapt and also contribute for a common effort. So, again, Secretary General, I would like to welcome you and wish you an excellent stay in Portugal. Your visit is about to end, but you still have a meeting with the Portuguese Prime Minister. Thank you.
I'm Luísa Meirelles from Expresso. Minister, when you talk about investing more in maritime security, is our aim now with the group in São Tomé? What do you mean? Well, what I mean is that we need to invest more in the Atlantic Security Center, and also reflects our strategy to strengthen our naval capabilities and capacity building in maritime security. I can provide further examples. As you know, we are involved in different missions in the Gulf of Guinea. We are a member of the Friends of the Friends of this Gulf. There has been more and more interventions at which we hope it's going to be more coherent, and we'll keep on working with our friends and allies. And if you look at our presence in the Atlantic and the actual size of the areas that we are surveilling and overseeing, so if we understand this, we'll then be able to work in further missions, not only with São Tomé, Cape Verde, and we will be working with other states whenever this capacity building be necessary. Let me give you another example that may be or may sound a bit far-fetched, but it's not. And I'm talking about defense of Sahel. As you know, this area, this band over the Central Republic and the strengthening of armed forces in Mauritania, and we are proposing that in this capacity building, or this capacity building will also include the maritime dimension. And let me provide you further recent examples on how our Navy has worked in different fields, like in cartography, which somehow represents an indirect contribution that will certainly help those states to better management their territorial waters.
Good afternoon. I'm Ligia Verissimo from RTP, a TV channel. I have two questions. Two questions. The command structure is being revisited. Will this affect Portugal? We had a command, a NATO command in the past. Today we don't. Has this been discussed? What is the state of play? And then I have a more sensitive question. We've had some security issues in our military sites. I would like to know if this was discussed, and I would like to know if NATO has expressed any concerns regarding these issues. Regarding the second question, it's not sensitive at all. The answer is no. Regarding the first question, the Secretary General has already mentioned the need of NATO to adapt, and what is being studied is a new command structure to tackle challenges that could not be tackled by the current command structure, and also to make the organization more robust. Portugal supports this initiative. We are not discussing sites. We usually confuse this matter, who will get what, but we're discussing how can we make NATO a better prepared structure to ensure our security and defense. And maybe the Secretary General, if he so decides, that he could talk about the command structure, this new command structure.
Well, as the Minister just said, this is an adaptation of the command structure which we haven't yet decided. We have received recommendations from our strategic commanders, from our military authorities, and now we are going to discuss it and also make decisions at the Defense Ministerial meeting in NATO in February. There we will hopefully decide on, what I say, the main elements, decide the structure, but not decide on the specific geographic footprint. That will be decided later. But what I can say is that we have adapted the command structure before, after the end of the Cold War. Then we scaled down. Then we reduced the command structure. So actually we closed many commands around in Europe. Now the recommendation from the military authorities or from our strategic commanders is a small increase. So it's a very different situation compared to what we saw earlier when we scaled down NATO command structure. That's not the plan this time. And therefore, I cannot be more detailed about the exact geographic footprint, because those decisions will be taken after we have decided the structure, the different elements, and hopefully we'll do that in February.
Ana Rodrigues da Rádio Renascença.
Ana Rodrigues from Rádio Renascença.
Stoltenberg,
Minister, the Secretary General of NATO talked about the importance of the Atlantic, and Portugal has certain capabilities that are recognized by NATO. Was Portugal asked any specific contribution? And I would also like to ask, Portugal as a security producer, Portugal will participate in different NATO missions in 2018. But Portugal also has other missions, and you've mentioned the example of São Tomé and Príncipe, but how are these resources managed? We always take into account the scarcity of resources, notwithstanding that it's the third year during which we've been able to strengthen our budget related with the external projection of Portugal. And for the third consecutive year, this budget for this kind of forces and missions increased. The participation of Portugal in this type of forces follows three main guidelines, and these are always present in the Portuguese foreign policy and Portuguese defense policy. Portugal is a founding member of NATO, and this is also expressed in the way we participate in NATO's missions or operations. In 2018, there was a 10% increase of the number of Portuguese militaries involved in NATO initiatives, and this clearly shows our commitment to the operational nature of NATO. But as you well know, we decided to discontinue our presence in Kosovo, but the Portuguese government assumed a commitment that we would replace the land mission regarding our discontinuation of our presence in K4, although there are still 10 military present. When Portugal realizes that since 2016 we had been discussing the crucial need to strengthen our presence in the Resolute Support, we said yes, we're available, and I believe this was clearly stated, since our commitment for 2018, I believe, compensates the decision not to be present any longer in Afghanistan. Regarding the second part of your question, it's a very important part of the defense policy. We believe that our contribution should be as relevant as possible to the peacekeeping dimension, and this is, of course, a reason of concern for us and for NATO, taking into account, of course, the difficulties that exist in certain territories, and for reasons I'm not going to discuss now. In the last few years, we were not very present in UN missions, and following the Paris terrorist attacks, Portugal decided to give a positive answer to what was requested by France in the West African Republic, and we have assumed the command of the mission of the European Union. There's no contradiction whatsoever whatsoever regarding our security and defense. This is within the NATO framework.
Noutra missão ou noutra organização. E, portanto, se, por exemplo, no caso da República Centro-Africana, nós estamos perante
in the example given before, if there are threats that may put at stake other territories and our own security, our duty is to say we are present and available. Our commitment to NATO does not entail neglecting other missions, especially if we take into account the peacekeeping within the UN. The São Tomé and Príncipe mission is an innovative and important mission, because instead of training or capacity building missions, in this case we shall have in a Portuguese vessel military forces of São Tomé, and they will themselves enforce their sovereignty and jurisdiction, and together we will take care of a need that we all share. It's not specific to Portugal, the US, France, or Italy. The Atlantic, if it's not a secure communication space, we will all suffer. If we consider international maritime trade, and many take place in risk areas such as the Guinea Gulf, we will contribute towards the decrease of threats on the north. And when I talk about the Atlantic, again, we must speak about NATO. As the Secretary General said, in the furthest to the north part of the Atlantic, we have reasons of concern and threats that we believe to be confined to the east flank, but they have been expanding, and we know that they are now getting close to the territorial Portuguese waters. So this Atlantic dimension of NATO is something that enables to recover our heritage as an organization. It's the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, and we are only being loyal to our name.
Boa tarde, Sónia Ferreira, da Agência Lusa. As minhas perguntas...
Good afternoon. I'm from Agência Lusa. My question is to you, Secretary General. Not too long ago, the Minister of Defense spoke about the Atlantic Security Center at Lajes in the Azores. I would like to ask you, what do you expect, and how do you see the creation of this center? Do you think it can be considered, or it will come to be an excellent center for NATO? Also, regarding the restructuring of commanding structure that is now underway, do you consider that Portugal can be seen as providing an added value to this structure?
To which
Thank
structure?
You. No, I mean, I'm talking about, are you going to create a new command for the Atlantic or the terrestrial or to the land forces? Do you think that Portugal may be eligible to actually host such a command?
First, on this NATO Security Center, which Portugal is planning to establish, I was informed about that during my visit today. My understanding is that this is a center of excellence, and that is something which different nations initiate, and then it has to be, in a way, approved or accredited by NATO. We have not started that process as far as I'm aware of, but we welcome all initiatives to strengthen NATO's understanding and NATO's abilities to analyze and to respond to all challenges related to the Atlantic. So, well, that's an interesting proposal. It's something we we welcome all initiatives that can strengthen our ability to deal with the challenges we see related to the Atlantic in many different ways. When it comes to the command structure, there are many elements there, but one element which is of course important for all countries which are bordering the Atlantic, including Portugal, is and of course also for the whole alliance, is that there is a proposal to establish a new command for the Atlantic. And that's one of the elements we will decide on when we meet in February, so next month, the defense ministers. As I said, there has been no decision on the geographic footprint, so therefore it will be wrong if I start to speculate, but I welcome proposals, initiatives from Portugal. Portugal has a lot of maritime understanding and important maritime capabilities and capacities. And earlier today, I visited Strike Force NATO, which is something which is important for the whole alliance. It's important for Portugal, but it also underlines Portugal's key role in addressing maritime challenges in general and the Atlantic in particular. So we are now in the process of making decisions, and the first decision is to decide on whether we will have a new Atlantic command or a command for Atlantic, and then we will decide the different elements, including the geographic footprint, but I welcome initiatives and proposals from Portugal. Thank you. Thank you.